Today we're going to be talking about positive thinking in the context of mindfulness. And so we'll begin, as we always do, with a period of quiet time. And then what we're going to be doing is kind of briefly reviewing what we did the last time we were together, and then I have a video for you. And then we'll take what was discussed in that video and then apply it. You know, how can we be more positive in our thinking? Because positive thinking done properly can make a huge difference in how we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we approach life. And then I will have a concluding video, a short video for us when we're all done. So why don't we take that quiet time now? So if you would make sure your cell phones and other electronic devices are disarmed. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to do so. If you'd rather have them open, I encourage you to gaze gently down in front of you. And of course, the idea here is to minimize distractions. So, closing our eyes or gazing gently down in front of us. Taking this opportunity to arrive here, in this place, at this moment, right here, right now. A decision to take care of ourselves, to spend time with ourselves. And so checking in with our environment and paying attention to sounds. The sensation of sound. Wherever that sound might be located, near or far, above or below. Whether it's loud, whether it's soft, coming and going, changing. And noticing perhaps whether you experience it as pleasant or unpleasant or just neutral. And no doubt by now you've probably had some thoughts and feelings which may have led to other thoughts and other feelings. And that's kind of the way it works. We sense something, we experience something directly, and then the mind makes sense of it. It interprets it. It finds the value in it. So the mind is doing what the mind does. But what we're doing here today in being mindful and doing mindful meditation is we're paying attention to something of our choice. And in this case, we're paying attention to the sensation of sound. And while doing that, we're going to notice thoughts, we're going to notice feelings, and we're going to take note of those. Because that's value information. That's information that can help us later. So mindfulness is paying attention to what we're doing while we're doing it, and at the same time noticing our experience surrounding the doing. So I pay attention to the sensation of the breath or the sensation of sound or any other sensation, and I notice what comes up around it. But I continue to pay attention. I'm developing that mindfulness muscle, the ability to stay present in the moment with the object of my attention. And so I'm moving the awareness from sounds, and we're not going to ignore sounds, but we're moving the attention to the body in the chair. And kind of checking in, noticing points of contact of the body with the chair and the floor, perhaps the table, perhaps one part of the body contacting another part of the body. And as we check in with the body, there may be places in the body where there's discomfort or aches and pains, and we take notice of that. We don't ignore it, we acknowledge it. And if it's really calling out to us, we can choose to breathe into it or breathe around it. But continuing to pay attention to the body. And then finally bringing the attention from the sensations of sound and the body to the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath. Breathing in and breathing out. And so as we pay attention to the breath, we do find that place in the breath where the breath is most alive for us, most vivid, most natural. And for some it is in the area of the nose, noticing how the air is cool coming in and warm going out. Some of us is in the area of the chest, noticing how the chest rises and falls with the in-breath and out-breath. And for others, it's in the area of the tummy, noticing how that area will expand and contract. Or perhaps in the entire upper torso, the front, the back, the sides, how it fills and empties with the in-breath and out-breath. And as we spend time with the breath, we start taking on the qualities of the breath. After all, it is our breath. And so as we pay attention to the breath, we notice that it's natural. It's easy. Through no effort of our own, it just happens. And the breath takes on a certain steadiness, a certain calm. So allowing the breath to settle into the body. Developing that platform for awareness, for paying attention. So paying attention to the in-breath and the out-breath, knowing that any time, any place where we're out of sorts, we're a little stressed, that we can always come home to the breath, that sweet spot on the breath. And once again, take on that calm, that alertness, that focus. So just taking a moment more to pay attention to the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath. Knowing that when we're distracted, when we're ready, if we choose, we can always come back to the breath. You might recall when Kristen Neff was talking about compassion, she talked about the three qualities of compassion. Number one is kindness. Number two is mindfulness. And number three is common humanity. And so let's start with the notion of common humanity. The idea is that we all suffer. Suffering is the nature of existence. And so even though we may sometimes have that sense of uniqueness or perhaps that it only happens to me, the fact of the matter is that we all suffer. And there's two kinds of suffering. There's a suffering that's really beyond our control that just kind of happens to us. A loss of a family member, the loss of a relationship, a loss of a job, perhaps some kind of ill health. And so we have suffering that comes out of that. But then there's the other suffering, okay? And that's the suffering that we put on top of the suffering. The gentleman we're going to hear today, Ferris, in his book Buddha's Brain, talks about what is called first darts and second darts. First darts is that first set of suffering that hits us that we really can't do anything about. But how we deal with that suffering determines whether or not we develop new suffering or not. And just to kind of go backwards to the origins of mindfulness-based stress reduction, Jon Kabat-Zinn, when he was working with patients in the late 1970s at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, was working with chronic pain patients who had gotten to the point where traditional means of dealing with their pain just weren't working, whether it was drugs or whatever. And so these were desperate people. And so what Jon Kabat-Zinn took the 8-week MBSR course, which is still pretty much in the same form today that as it was then, and he found two things that happened. One is that the actual pain that these people were experiencing actually diminished. And in those days, it was anecdotal. Now today, there's science to show that is in fact the case. That mindfulness meditation and various kinds of mindfulness practices can make a difference in any number of different kinds of maladies and diseases. And we also know that it can enhance a treatment. So for example, if you're taking certain kinds of drugs, it actually makes them more effective. So number one, he noticed that their pain was reduced. But significantly, what he noticed that there was that extra layer of suffering that we have surrounding our suffering that was reduced. Because what mindfulness does, it changes our relationship to ourselves. We change the way in which we relate to ourselves. And so there tends to be less of that second darts and that suffering. And so that is what Dan Ferris is going to be talking about here. So what we're doing is to be compassionate, we need to be mindful. And just to remember that when we're mindful, we are intentional, we have a purpose for what we're doing. We choose an attitude that we're bringing to our purpose. And before we do that, we check our attitude at the door, right? So I'm going to be talking to my wife about an issue, okay, and it's a recurring issue. And so before I talk to her about that, and I want to get clarity, that's my intention, or at least I think it is, okay? And then I check my attitude at the door, and then out of that, I choose the attitude I want to bring to the situation. And then I pay attention to what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And that attitude of kindness and curiosity over the extended period of time becomes transformative. Because what we're going to find in this video today is that if we can sustain or engage a certain tone, a certain mood for 12 to 14 seconds, the brain changes. We develop new gray matter in the brain. And so if we can do that again and again and again, that gray matter can go from here to here to here to here. We can use, as he will say, the mind uses the brain to change the mind. So that's the context we're looking at here. And then when we're done looking at this, we'll kind of go step through step. How can we then use positive thinking to make the kind of changes that we'd like to make?
Wow. So what I want to do here, if I could, is share with you a very simple yet powerful method grounded in neuroscience for turning passing experiences into lasting structure, useful structure inside our brain. In other words, turning experiences into the happiness or the resilience or the other inner strengths that we really want inside ourselves. I sort of stumbled on this method when I was in college, but to explain the context, I have to take you back a little before into my own up and down childhood. So I grew up in a loving home of good parents, intact family, but I was very, very young going through school. I have a late birthday and I skipped a grade. And that combined with my kind of shy and seriously dorky temperament, you know, skinny, glasses, picked last for baseball, the whole thing. Well, What it led to were lots of experiences of being left out or put down by the other kids in school. Now, what happened to me was very small compared to, unfortunately, what happens to many, many other people. But we all have normal needs to feel cared for, to feel cared about. We are the most profoundly social species on the planet. As we evolved in the Serengeti, exile was a death sentence. Causes have effects. And if we don't get the supplies that we need, bit by bit, it's kind of like we're living on a thin soup. You can survive, you can make it, but there's a hollowness and emptiness inside. In my own case, hopefully this will work, yes, I ended up with lots of bad thoughts and feelings inside of me as a result. Then I went off to college, and I began to notice something really powerful and interesting. Some small good thing would happen. A girl would smile at me in the elevator. Some guy would throw me the football, an intramural football, and say, "Good catch, Henson." That was really good. Or guys would invite me to go out for pizza. Basic stuff of everyday life. And then I would have an experience, right? I would feel a little included or a little wanted, a little appreciated. Then the question is, what would I do with that experience? If I dealt with it like I usually did, which was to kind of ignore it, let it pass along, I kept feeling lonely and inadequate. But I began to notice that if I did something different, if I stayed with it a dozen or so seconds in a row, it felt like something was gradually coming into me that was actually good. And I began feeling better and better and better and more confident. Any single time I did this, wasn't a mind-blowing moment. I had a few of those through other means. But the good things really did add up over time for me, definitely. And now, years later, many years later, as a neuropsychologist, I began to understand what I was actually doing. It wasn't just changing my mind. I was actually changing my brain. That's because, as the neuroscientists say, neurons that fire together wire together. Passing mental states become lasting neural traits. Bit by bit, I was actually weaving these resources into the fabric of my brain and therefore my life. There are many examples of the ways in which mental activity can change brain structure. For example, taxi cab drivers in London at the end of their training have a thicker brain in a key part called the hippocampus that does visual spatial memory. In a different kind of example, I don't know if anybody in here experiences stress, right, occasionally. Well, if we have the experience of stress, that releases cortisol in the body, it goes up into the brain. Cortisol gradually stimulates the alarm bell of the brain, the amygdala, so it rings more loudly and more quickly, and cortisol weakens. It actually kills neurons in the hippocampus, which besides doing visual spatial memory, calms down the amygdala and calms down stress altogether. So this mental experience of stress, especially if it's chronic and moderate to severe, gradually changes the structure of the brain, so we become progressively more sensitive to stress. All right. The mind can change the brain to change the mind. Knowing this is really valuable because the inner strengths, to go back to the beginning of my story here, the inner strengths that we all want, happiness, positive emotion, determination, feeling loved, confidence, the virtues, the executive functions, those are all built out of the brain. The question is how to actually get them into the brain. The interesting thing is that most of the wholesome qualities of mind and heart that help us cope with life, including coping with hard things, and have a lot inside ourselves to give to other people, most of those inner strengths are built from positive experiences of those strengths. If you want to feel more confident, for example, have more experiences of accomplishment or coping. If you want to have a more loving heart, practice more moments of compassion or kindness for others. The problem is that to get these experiences into our brain, we have to overcome the brain's hardwired negativity bias. This negativity bias means that the brain is very good at learning from bad experiences, but bad at learning from good ones. In other words, good experiences kind of bounce off the brain unless we do a little thing that I'm going to tell you about in a moment. Meanwhile, bad experiences sink right in. The reason for the negativity bias is that our ancestors had to pay a lot of attention to bad news because if they survived it, they had to remember it forever, right? Once burned, twice shy. These days, we have ordinary experiences of this. Think about a relationship you're in, right, with someone you live with, work with, sleep with, whatever. Let's say 10 things happen in a day with that person. 5 of them are positive, 4 are neutral, 1 is negative. Which is the one we tend to think about as we go to sleep, right? That's why a lot of studies show that a good long-term relationship typically needs at least a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. That's a cautionary tale, right? All right. So that's the negativity bias. It creates a fundamental bottleneck in the brain that creates a weakness in both informal efforts and formal efforts to grow, to heal, to train ourselves in different ways. Whether you're a psychologist like me or a meditation teacher like me or a corporate trainer, a coach, a parent, I'm also a parent with my wife, or you're trying to help people in one way or another, we tend to be very good at activating positive mental states. But are we very good at helping people install them in the brain? I don't think so. There's been this long-standing assumption that if we just get a good thing going, somehow it will sink in. What can we do? We can learn to take in the good, to pop open this bottleneck in the brain, and gradually weave good experiences into the fabric of our brain and our life. So I thought we could actually do it here right now. Something experiential, all right? It is Marin County. I thought we could go for it. So we'll just try it right now. It's a little weird, a little artificial. Why not? All right, just go for it. So I'll take you through this kind of informally, then I'll explain what we just did. So if you could, bring to mind someone that you know cares about you. It could be a pet, could be a group of people, could be a person in your life, in your past. It doesn't really matter. What you're trying to do is have a good experience, a simple good experience of feeling cared about. You're trying to help the idea of this person or the image or a memory become a feeling. Okay, want to try? And then once you get it going, you're moving out of concept to experience. Stay with it. It's kind of a critical mass of time, a threshold. Things have to last long enough in our experience to transfer from short-term memory buffers to long-term storage, including emotional learning. And meanwhile, you could sense that this experience is going into you. You're absorbing it. It's sinking into you, feeling loved as you sink into it. A simple moment. 10, 20 seconds, usually won't change our life, but bit by bit, it can really make an enormous difference. I'd like to tell you the little steps of taking in the good. They're very simple. I even have a clever acronym that you can use to remember them. Our daughter thought of the last word of the acronym, very important, so I want to give her credit. So in the first step, have a good experience. We've got to activate it. We've got to get it going, right? The brain is like an old school cassette recorder. It records the music by playing it. We have to have an experience. In the second step, enrich the experience. Help install this activated mental state into your brain as a neural trait. Let it last, help it grow in your body, help it become increasingly intense. Give yourself over to it. And in the third step of taking in the good, absorb it. Sense and intend that it's sinking into you. This will prime memory systems. This will sensitize them so they'll be more efficient at encoding the experience into neural structure. And then, if you want to, the optional step is to link the positive experience with something negative. You got to be a little careful about this because you don't want to be hijacked by the negative. But if you can stay strong with the positive, it will gradually associate with the negative. Neurons that fire together wire together, and it'll go into the negative to soothe it, ease it, even gradually replace it. And you can use this step of taking in the good, where you're linking positive and negative, for yourselves or for children or for clients, students, or others you care about. You can use this method to heal old pain or neglect, whether in adulthood or childhood, even reaching down into young parts of yourself. To kind of sum it up here, we have 4 steps that become an acronym HEAL, H-E-A-L. It's an easy way to remember it. Have it, all right? Enrich the experience to begin installing it in your brain once it's activated in your mind. Absorb it, and if you like, link it, so it really becomes a part of you. Now, this may seem a little complicated. We all know how to take in the good. We all know how to help some good life lesson land, some good experience with other people. We know how to let these things land. In a nutshell, this whole thing boils down to, all my verbiage here, to 4 words. Have it and enjoy it, right? Especially enjoy it so it becomes a part of you. This is not about covering over negative truths, right? Paradoxically, the more we take in the good, we're more able to see the bad and do something about it. You know, in fact, this is about taking control of the brain's Stone Age bias, right, in the 21st century, to excessively focus on the bad and over-worry about it, right? Any single time we do it isn't going to change our life, but the gradual accumulation, both in the flow of our day and at special times if we want to, like at meals or at nighttime before bed or after meditating or a workout, we can gradually build this up inside ourselves. You know, I think of it as the law of little things, right? It's usually lots of little bad things that take us to a bad place. And it's lots of little good things that take us to a better one. There's a saying they have in Tibet. I think about it often. They say, if you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves. I find that so hopeful, isn't it? Right? What's the most important minute in your life? It's the next one. Right? Can't do anything about the past. A few minutes into the future, we start losing a lot of influence. But the next minute is a phenomenal opportunity for us. Like me back in college, or any one of us today, or over the course of this evening, what will we do with the most important minute in our life? Right? And especially, what will we do with the good that's authentically available to us in it? Will we waste it, or will we, a few times a day, or even more, actually take it into ourselves? For me, there's a Buddhist saying that really speaks to the heart of the opportunity in the most important minute of our life. It goes like this: do not think lightly of good, saying, it will not come to me. Drop by drop is the water pot filled. Likewise, the wise one, gathering it little by little, fills oneself with good. So, may you and I and all beings everywhere, little by little, fill ourselves with good. So, thank you.
So any thoughts, insights, discoveries, reactions to that? Takes about 5 positive for every negative. How are we doing with that ratio? Yeah. Well, that's no less true for ourselves than it is for others. So for every negative message that we have circulating in our head, we need to have 5 affirming or positive messages. So for each of us, it would be interesting to take a look at what that ratio is. The typical person in a day has anywhere between 30 and 50,000 thoughts. 95% of them are the same old thoughts. There's nothing new. So we may think 30 to 50,000 thoughts, but 95% of them are the same thoughts we've already have. And so what we do really is, there's other studies that show that 60% of that is mindless. So the vast majority of the time we're mindless, and the vast majority of thoughts we have are the same old thoughts. And so the only way any of that's going to change is, of course, to become mindful. Otherwise, we're doomed to repeating the same old patterns. And so what we do is we become mindful. We choose to pay attention to what's going on. We're present to our thoughts, our feelings, our body sensations. We check in with our environment. We take an inventory. We become mindful. We become present. And out of that, then we can begin to observe this activity that's going on in ourselves. And when we are aware of it, we now have a choice. As long as I'm ignorant of what's going on, I have no choice. But as soon as I become present to it, become aware to it, now I have choice. So I amplify the good and ignore the bad. So what did you think of that talk? There's so much in there. I know every time I hear it, I get a little something new. And I do have an activity for you related to that in the handout I have for you, and that's important, but I think what's more important now is you have something about this that you find interesting. Please share that with us, because it might be of value to the rest of us. Did that trigger anything for you? Mr. Schrock?
Yes, the negativity bias. Yeah, wow, that makes a lot of sense in terms of evolutionarily why we would kind of be programmed to do that, but for me anyway, that was the biggest thing nugget that I took. It's a natural thing, but
well, my guess is since it hit you so strongly, that you probably had some reference to it in your own life. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
I would wonder more why evolutionary would we remember negative things more? Because not all negative things make us fearful for our lives, you know?
May I answer that? Okay, and it's not the definitive answer, it's just an answer. Okay, let me qualify it. But we talk about the fight or flight response that's common to all animals. Okay, and so the whole thing behind that is, of course, that what we want to do is we want to make sure as a species that we continue to survive, and typically flight or flight is the way animals, living creatures do that. They fight when they have to, they flee when they can. Okay, and so you do that to protect the reproduction, you do that to protect your territory, and so on. But human beings also have what is called the tend and befriend response. And Kristen Neff talks about that in her work, and it was actually developed by sociologists just about 30 years ago. And the idea is, rather than doing fight or flight, we might respond to it with care and warmth, or with affiliation. So fight or flight is common to all animals, but tend and befriend is unique to humans. So there is an alternative. But we're kind of wired through our primal brain. See, our reptilian brain and all of this stuff right here, this is what goes, anytime there's any kind of perceived threat, that's the part that activates first. And those chemicals kick in. And it isn't until a little time later, and it's just like, that it begins to travel through, and that the more human part of the brain enters in. So it moves its way into the area of the prefrontal cortex, where thinking, where reasoning is, where memory, especially short-term memory is, where emotions are experienced, positive emotions on the left side, negative emotions on the right side. And by the way, we can develop that side through mindfulness, okay, because we can change the brain. So that most instinctual primal brain kicks in first. And why? Because at our core, we want to keep going. We want to survive. So this is a good thing. The negativity bias serves an important function. But where we're at in our development as social creatures, it also becomes a liability as well as an asset. And because our natural default is fight or flight, but we're capable of tend and befriend. But that requires some mindfulness. So much of our life is on automatic pilot, and we get away with it. But the stuff that really matters, we can't get through that in a meaningful way on automatic pilot. We need to be able to choose from awareness. I need to know who I am, my thoughts, feelings, body, and so forth, so I have more choice. There's not much choice with ignorance. I'm doomed to repeat the same old behavior patterns, even though maybe my heart's desire to do differently, but because of my lack of knowledge and the handicap of that, I'm limited. So what mindfulness does, it opens it up, the container. It's like it's all in there. I've opened it up, now it keeps bubbling up. Okay? So I know it's an analogy, but I think that kind of works. Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah. So tend to befriend is the other option that we have. But that primal part of our brain, and that's why the negativity bias, we're hypervigilant, we have sensitivity to negative information, and those are the kinds of things that we typically do. And what we know with mindfulness is interesting is we develop new neural pathways. And so what can happen is, and I remember I first was exposed to this in a study that was done in 2011, it was kind of like, the study. And the idea is they found that people that did mindfulness developed new neural pathways so that the information that went to the primal brain first got to this part of the brain more quickly. So, and I don't remember the exact figures, but rather than being maybe 1/10 of a second or a second, it would be half that. We found experientially that what happens is there's a pause, there's a gap, there's just that moment where I have a choice that I didn't have before because I've developed that quality of mindfulness. And that's how we experience this thing of neuroplasticity, is like, I have more choice now. I have a calm in this moment that maybe I didn't have before. Does that kind of make sense? And so that's the experience of, I think, of what they're talking about in the science. The nervous system has an activating system and a calming system. And during the course of our day, a normal, comfortable day, we found a healthy balance between the two. But whenever we're in a threatening situation, the activating system really kicks in. And it sends all those chemicals into the body. And so it isn't until some time, I don't know if it's a second or where, I forget, before the calming system will come into place. And that's only if the prefrontal cortex captures the moment and we're not somehow consumed by the moment. Okay, so anyway, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to turn to your neighbor, and before you do that, I want you to think of a situation where a conversation you'd like to have with a person, kind of like I did with my wife, because it's a situation where maybe there's ill feeling on your part towards the person, or you feel bad about yourself, and so it's as if you could talk to that person, or you could meditate on that person, and by doing that somehow change the way you feel about yourself or the way you feel about them, because that can happen. So I'd like you to turn to that person and tell them who that person or what that incident is. Okay? So pick someone next to you. You two by twos. Just share that with that person. Okay? And you're not going to be asked to share that with anybody other than that person. But just share an incident. And if you don't want to share like, a big one, pick a little one. Okay, may I have your attention, please? I apologize for cutting you off. But what we're going to do now is a kind of a visualization. And maybe the next time around when we do another series, we'll include that in there. There's a lot of literature on visualization and the power of visualization. And so let's say I was going to talk to that person, okay? What I might want to do is, before I actually talk to that person, particularly it's challenging, is I might want to kind of rehearse that, okay? And I can rehearse that in a mindful way. I could be contemplative. In other words, I can hold this future experience, this visualization, this narrative, this potential narrative in awareness. And I can allow it, as Harris said, allow it to just kind of sink in, to settle, and where it just kind of becomes a part of my body, my emotion, or not. But I'm just allowing it, and I'm really engaging that, okay? And what a visualization allows us to do then is when we enter the actual event, we're kind of, in a sense, kind of not preconditioned, but we already have that frame, that attitude, and that confidence that comes from with doing that visualization. And it's used in therapy a lot, but we don't have to be therapists, and we don't have to go to therapy. This is stuff we can do for ourselves. Okay? It's kind of like going through rehearsal. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to close your eyes and just for a moment to visualize that person. Visualize an opportunity to talk to this person, okay? And your intent in this situation is to engage this person in a way that is affirming to you and to them. And your attitude you're going to bring to this is kindness and curiosity. And you can bring whatever attitude you want to it as well, making sure we're checking our attitude at the door. Maybe there's some anger and there's resentment, and we acknowledge it. We're not ignoring it. But out of that awareness, we're choosing the attitude. And so visualizing ourselves with that person, and perhaps nothing said at all. Perhaps we're just holding that person in awareness with that attitude. Just holding that person in awareness with that intention to get clarity, to get understanding. to find peace, that common humanity. And that person may go in and out of awareness, and we come back to that. Knowing that if we sustain it for even 10, 15 seconds, it can make a difference. There's some interesting research that's been done on affirmations and, kind of just saying affirmations, positive things. And then there's also interesting research that's been done on contemplation, where you take those same things that you might say in affirmation and you hold them in awareness. So I might say in affirmation, I'd say, I am a worthwhile, non-judgmental person. And I remember when I first started my recovery from addictions back in 1982, that was one of the things I did. But what if I held that in awareness and I said, I am a worthwhile person? Sink. Let that sink. And you might notice some resistance to that. There might be a part of you that doesn't resist that because you don't really believe that. But if you allow that to sink. And I remember when I did it, it was recommended in treatment, it was very good. What we had us do is they had us look in the mirror and look yourself in the eyes and say to you, George, you are a worthwhile, non-judgmental person. I challenge you to try that. It is really, really quite powerful. But what you're doing, though, in a way, is you're being present to yourself. And you're being present to your body and your nonverbal, which is the topic of next week. Before we go, I have a video that I just love, and I always look for opportunities to show it, and I think it will fit quite well here. If you were with us last year, you saw this one. It's called Just Breathe.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot.
I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me.
When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting.
Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red.
When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body.
I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would feel like. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it.
When I get angry, I feel it in my heart.
I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down.
When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breaths. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down.
When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths.
I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths.
It's coming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain.
It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your
my brain like slows down, and then like I feel more calm, and then I'm like ready to speak to that person.